I don't want my players playing for Duke. I want them to be Duke. Welcome to the Hall of Teams, the podcast where sports legends live again. I'm your host, Kirk Jensen. Today, we travel to one of the most complicated teams in sports. A team where love and hate easily trade places and are spoken in the same breath. We go to where pine and oak stretch across the Carolina landscape. A green wall rising in layers of shadow and light. The air is heavy, humid, patient. Beneath the trees, history breathes. Here, basketball is not entertainment. It is inheritance. Rivalry lives here. Expectation lives here. Silence waits here for the madness. And from here, everything begins. We open with the Schoolhouse origins, a small rural start that grows into a university built on character and expectation. Then we step inside Cameron Indoor, where noise becomes defense, pressure becomes routine. Next comes the rise on Tobacco Road. We enter the Coach K era, where Duke turns from contender into dynasty. Then we face the scars and the silence. The Knights' march takes everything. And finally, March Madness, where another bracket forms, and can Duke still carry the weight of its own legend? And now, the story of one of the most defining programs in the history of college basketball, the Duke Blue Devils. Chapter 1, From Schoolhouse to Standard. Before there were banners in the rafters, before the roar inside Cameron Indoor Stadium, there was a small schoolhouse in rural North Carolina. That journey begins in 1838 in Randolph County, where a modest log classroom, later known as Brown's Schoolhouse, serves as a local community shaped by Methodist and Quaker roots. In 1841, that school grows into Union Institute, and in 1851, it becomes Normal College. In 1859, it is chartered as Trinity College. After the Civil War, Trinity relocated to Durham in 1892, positioning itself in a tobacco and textile city that was becoming the economic engine of the South. The transformation into Duke University came in 1924, fueled by the $40 million philanthropy of industrialist James Buchanan Duke, about $750 million in today's currency. In his indenture of trust, Duke wrote that the institution should pursue the uplifting of mankind. That ambition extended to the court. Basketball arrived in 1905. While the sport was still in its infancy, the program built slowly, reflecting the growth of the school itself. Philanthropy, leadership, and vision combined to create a program that believed it belonged on the biggest stage. That belief is where the Duke story begins. Crest and Colors. In the late 1880s, Trinity College adopted dark blue as its school color. An oral tradition links the choice to Yale blue, selected in honor of Trinity President John Franklin Crowell, a Yale graduate. In 1922, students voted to replace the team name, the Trinity 11. The name Blue Devils was adopted through a student newspaper contest. The inspiration for the Duke Blue Devils came from World War I and the French Chasseurs Alpines, an elite mountain troop known as Les Diables Bleus. They were disciplined, resilient, relentless in the harshest terrain, and that identity resonated on campus. Early depictions of the Blue Devil are not credited to a single commissioned designer. In the early 1900s, different devil illustrations appear in campus publications and athletic materials as the identity takes shape. Today, Duke's modern crest is the Iron Duke D. It is a name forged in the mud of 1938 from a Duke football team that went undefeated without surrendering a single point all season. They were called the Iron Dukes because they were a wall that wouldn't break. You'll also see the modern Blue Devil head used inside it. That symbol carries the past. It is the edge of the brand and has a grin behind the standard. Chapter 2, The Bradley and Bubas Years. By the time Duke Indoor Stadium opens in 1940, later renamed Cameron Indoor Stadium, Duke is no longer a small regional program. Through the 1940s, the program grows into the rhythm of a school that expects to compete. Then in 1953, the ACC forms and the league becomes the proving ground. Duke battles the University of North Carolina, North Carolina State University, and Wake Forest University, and every conference night feels like a test of nerve. In 1950, Duke adds a steady hand. Harold Bradley arrives and brings discipline and structure to a program still searching for its place among the elite. Duke wins consistently through the decade, and the foundation hardens. This is also the era when the rivalry of the University of North Carolina intensifies. Just 14 miles down Tobacco Road, North Carolina is building its own tradition. 2 flagship universities, 1 state, 2 courts. The games are physical, personal, emotional. The turning point arrives in 1959. Duke hires Vic Bubas. The program modernizes fast. Recruiting expands beyond the region. Roles sharpen, and the atmosphere becomes part of the edge. Under Bubas, Duke starts winning like a power. He captures 4 ACC tournament titles, 1960, 63, 64, and 66. Duke is no longer a good Southern team. Duke is a national program knocking on the door. If you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, you can also watch this episode on YouTube with rare photos, historic match footage, and visuals that bring the story to life. Search Hall of Teams on YouTube to find it. And if you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps the channel grow. Chapter 3, From Close to Champions. For years, the Duke Blue Devils men's basketball has been close. In 1980, Duke brings in Mike Krzyzewskiville, and the program begins its transformation into a national standard. Deep tournament runs keep putting Duke near the summit. In 1986, Duke reaches the national championship game and loses. In 1988 and 1989, more Final Fours. In 1990, they are back again, only to be overwhelmed by the UNLV Runnin' Rebels, 103-73 in the title game. It is not just a loss, it is a statement loss. Duke walks off the court, not broken, but marked. The next season becomes about something deeper than talent. It becomes about belief under pressure. In March of 1991, Duke returns to the Final Four. Standing in front of them in the national semifinal is the same UNLV team, undefeated, 34-0, considered by many to be one of the greatest college teams ever assembled. Most assume the rematch will look like 1990. Instead, it becomes the pivot point in Duke history. From the opening tip, Duke plays with poise. Christian Laettner controls the interior. Bobby Hurley commands tempo. Grant Hill defends and transitions with precision. Duke does not try to outrun UNLV. Duke makes the game a test of execution. With seconds left, the scoreboard reads 79-77. Duke has done the unthinkable. The undefeated giant falls. Krzyzewski calls it what it is. One of the greatest basketball games in history. 2 nights later, Duke faces the University of Kansas in the national championship game. There is no emotional hangover. Duke leads with structure and composure, winning 72-65. For the first time, Duke is the national champion. The 1991 championship does more than hang a banner. It alters expectation. That is the night the doubt evaporates. The night Duke stops chasing legitimacy and starts defining. Trivia from the Hall. The squeeze at Cameron. Cameron Indoor Stadium does not intimidate by size. It intimidates with design. The visiting locker room is famously small, not metaphorically, physically. Built in 1940, long before modern expansion expectations, the space was never imagined for comfort. Benches are tight. Equipment trunks crowd the walls. Coaches often have to stand shoulder to shoulder during pregame talks. There is no luxury staging area, no wide hallway breathing room. Former opponents have joked that it feels more like a utility closet than a Division I power conference facility. Cameron was designed for proximity, a place where the crowd becomes an extra defender. At 9,314 seats, it holds roughly half the capacity of North Carolina's and NC State's larger arenas. That scale is part of history, not design. The visiting locker room never really grew with the program, and that detail became part of the culture. By the time opponents step onto the floor, they have already felt the compression. On Tobacco Road, space is not given. Cameron does not overwhelm with size. It suffocates. Chapter 4. The Coach K Era. Championships can happen once. Standards have to be built. After 1991 and reinforced in 1992, the Duke Blue Devils men's basketball program faces one of the hardest challenges in sport: sustaining success. Recruiting is not just about talent. It is about competitiveness, basketball intelligence, and finding players who can carry the weight of national scrutiny. Krzyzewski frames it with a simple belief. In developing teams, I don't believe in rules. I believe in standards. Rules don't promote teamwork. Standards do. When March arrives, Duke does not improvise under pressure. It executes. And there is proof in numbers. Duke has produced 6 number 1 overall NBA draft picks, the most of any NCAA school. Duke also lists 116 overall NBA draft selections and notes it has led the nation with 30 picks in the past 10 years. Success carries a tax. The more Duke wins, the more it becomes the program people want to see fall. In the later years especially, Duke is not just dominant, it is polarizing. Rival fan bases show up wearing anyone but Duke. Victory is something to be stopped. Inside the program, none of that changes the work. If anything, it sharpens it. Because once you become the villain, every game is a verdict. And Duke chooses to live with that. Behind the Bench reveals the leadership hierarchy, coaching structure, and high-performance support staff that make championship performance possible. At the top sits the Duke Athletic Director, responsible for vision, budget priorities, facilities, compliance, and the hiring support that protects the standard. The head coach runs the full build: recruiting strategy, roster decisions, player relationships, and the identity of the team. Assistant coaches carry the daily engine: scouting, player development, opponent preparation, and game plan installs, with their director of basketball operation coordinating practices, logistics, travel, hotels, and scheduling. Video and analytics break down tendencies and late game scenarios. Equipment and operations staff handle uniforms and travel loadouts, while communications and media relations manage messaging to keep the team protected as the spotlight intensifies. Behind the roster is a performance staff that covers health, recovery, and readiness. Athletic trainers handle treatment and prevention, while team physicians oversee medical decisions and protocols. Strength and conditioning runs year-round physical development and in-season maintenance. Sports nutrition supports fueling, and mental performance support helps with focus and pressure. The team roster typically tops out at 13 scholarship players, 5 guards, 4 wings, and 4 forwards and centers. When March arrives, the circle tightens. The standard is held by a rotation of just 8 or 9 men. The traveling party is 35 to 50 people. Chapter 5. Even Hardwood Splinters. By the mid-1990s, Duke is no longer an upstart. They are the hunted. In 1995, Mike Krzyzewski, the architect of the standard, is forced to take a leave of absence just 12 games into the season, sidelined by back surgery and exhaustion. Without the captain at the helm, the shift drifts. The Blue Devils finished 13-18, the first losing season in over a decade. For a program built on control and precision, the loss of rhythm is jarring. Critics wonder if the Duke era was a lightning strike that finally faded. But by 1999, Duke has assembled what many believe is the greatest team in the program's history. They are a juggernaut. Elton Brand, Shane Battier, and Trajan Langdon. They enter the national championship game with a staggering 37-1 record, riding a 32-game winning streak. They're not just the favorites. They are considered untouchable. And then on a Monday night in St. Petersburg, the impossible happens. In a slugfest against Connecticut, the untouchable team falls, one game short, 77-74. The 1999 loss remains one of the deepest bruises in Duke history. The lesson returns in 2025, and it returns like a tripped hammer. Duke leads Houston 64-55 and stands 2 minutes from the national championship game, only to collapse steps from the finish line. The lead is there, the path is there, then everything tightens until the game is gone. And Duke is left with a 70-67 defeat that feels less like a loss and more like a deep cut. The ending is as brutal as the score. Houston closes on 11-1 surge in the final minute and 14 seconds, including 9 straight points in the last 33 seconds. Once again, 2025 shows the same merciless truth. In March, greatness is never what you carry in. It is what you hold together when the pressure closes in. Trivia from the Hall, Krzyzewskiville. Duke basketball tickets are in high demand, and students will do anything to get inside Cameron. That is where Krzyzewskiville, or K-ville, comes to life. A campsite and a system built to make access fair for the biggest nights, especially North Carolina. Duke says it starts with renting tents. As original camper Kimberly Reed remembered, it was 26 degrees, and we were freezing. What makes it legendary is that it operates like a tiny city with laws.
I mean, the biggest thing is just having students in the tents, right? So each tent, for the most part, consists of 12 students.
There are line monitors, scheduled tent checks, and rules so strict, they sound like a comedy sketch, except they are real.
Tent captain will make a Google sheet with a schedule. We give them all of our course loads and where we have obligations.
The official policy spells out that digital evidence, like phone location data, cannot be used to prove you were in there. Line monitors are not responsible if you miss a check because you fell asleep, you stepped away, went to the bathroom, or had noise-canceling headphones on. Then there is the sound. ESPN compared the tent check horn to Pavlov's bell. The instant it blares, tents come alive. Everyone presents ID, and missing a check can cost you your space in line. That is why it fits Cameron's identity perfectly. The Cameron Crazies became known nationally in the mid-1980s, and the legend is not just the volume. It is the ritual, the tents, the checks, the horn, the sprint to prove you belong. At Duke, even waiting for a ticket becomes part of a home court advantage. Chapter 6, Built to Answer. Dynasties are not defined by perfection. They are defined by response. After the heartbreak of 1999, Duke faces a question that follows every giant program. Can they still close when the moment turns against them? In 2001, the answer begins even before the Final Four arrives. On January 27th in College Park, Duke trails Maryland 90-80. Then comes the miracle minute, a blur of steals, threes, and a nerve that forces overtime. Duke escapes 98-96. Weeks later, they again face Maryland in the national semifinal. Maryland storms ahead 39-17. Duke does not panic and wins 95-84. The 22-point margin still stands as the largest deficit ever overcome in Final Four history. 2 nights later, Duke faces Arizona in a national championship game between 2 number 1 seeds loaded with NBA talent. Duke absorbs Arizona's early punch, steadies behind Shane Batier's control and leadership, then pulls away for an 82-72 win to claim the 2001 national championship. In 2010, back in Indianapolis, Duke survives Butler 61-59 in a title game decided by a final half-court shot from Gordon Hayward that rattles off the rim at the buzzer. It is not pretty. It is the composure built into a championship program. Then comes 2015. Critics wonder whether the one-and-done era will dilute the culture, whether a program built on continuity can still hold its shape when the elite talent arrives for only a season. Krzyzewski adjusts again. Duke beats Wisconsin 68-63 to win the national championship. With several freshmen playing major roles, Krzyzewski says, "I've had a lot of great teams, but this is the best group I've ever been with. For them to win 35 games and a national championship, it's incredible." The blueprint holds because the standard is not tied to age. It is tied to expectation. The final chapter of the Krzyzewski era closes in 2022. But the most important moment is not a win or a loss. It is the deliberate passing of the torch. In June 2021, Duke names John Scheyer as the next head coach. The question becomes unavoidable. Did the excellence live in one man, or had it become institutional? Scheyer does not try to impersonate the past. He inherits the burden of it. And that burden has a modern scar. That is the test in front of Duke. Not whether they can win, whether they can answer the kind of loss that history does not let you forget. Chapter 7, March Madness. We stand now in March 2026. The air in Durham is tightening because this team is not chasing a good seed. It is defending a standard. Duke arrives here at 29-2 and 17-1 in the ACC. This is a roster with clear engines. Cameron Booster is the headline, a freshman forward who scores, rebounds, steadies possessions, including a 26-point night against NC State that clinched the ACC regular season title for Duke. Around him, the pieces fit. Dame Sarr is a shot maker on the wing. Isaiah Evans stretches the floor and punishes space. Malik Brown gives Duke an older, harder backbone up front. But March has come in like a lion for Duke. Patrick Gongba brings size that finishes plays and changes the shape of the lane, but is week to week with a foot injury. Caleb Foster, the guard who turns chaos into clean offense, is out for the foreseeable future after foot surgery. That means Duke's control now has to come from its depth. And depth is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity. The Final Four sits in Indianapolis, inside Lucas Oil Stadium on April 4th and April 6th. Duke has history in that city. But this part is not about history. It is about whether this group can repeat its identity when every opponent has a week to prepare. March does not care about brand. It asks the only question that matters in 2026. Not whether they can win, whether the Duke standard still holds. Duke is more than a basketball team. It is a standard built over generations and tested under the brightest lights. It began in 1838. It became Duke. It became the weight of tradition. From the breakthrough of 1991 to the blueprint of the 2000s, from heartbreak to championships, Duke proved that excellence can become institutional. Pressure did not fracture it. Pressure refined it. Through preparation, resilience, and an uncompromising standard, Duke helped shape the soul of modern college basketball. It is with honor that we induct the Duke Blue Devils as they take their rightful place on the Wall of Honor. In the Hall of Teams, legends don't just live in the past. They rise again through you. This year, you decide who earns the title Team of the Year. It's more than a title. It's a legacy without borders, across all sport, across time, across the world. We want to hear your thoughts, so let us know in the comments what you liked in this journey. When you like and subscribe, you're not just a viewer, you're part of the Hall. Each January, your voice helps decide which legendary team claims the ultimate title of Team of the Year. Help us immortalize the greatest across all sports, across time, and across the world. Subscribe and make your voice and your vote count. Next time on Hall of Teams. Some names in sport need no explanation. Say Indy and the engines begin to roar. Say Wimbledon, and you hear the hush of center court. And when you say the Masters, the world knows exactly where you are going. Augusta, Georgia. Down Magnolia Lane, where azaleas bloom and golf's greatest champions return every spring. But the Masters is more than a championship. Augusta National is a team built on honor, precision, and tradition. The grounds crew who prepare every green before sunrise, the volunteers who guide the galleries, and the membership who protect traditions that have lasted for generations. Together, they have built one of the most iconic stages in all of sport. Augusta National, the Masters, next time on Hall of Teams.